Personal finance expert, MeVest founder Lesley-Anne Scorgie joins us on Canada Now. And Lesley-Anne, your latest article in the Star discusses adult kids moving home due to the pandemic and the financial boundaries that should first be set.
That's right. So there was a real stigma around moving home. They called it failure to launch syndrome. And then the pandemic hit, and thousands of young adults with their kids, their dogs, their cats, and fish are all moving home because they need to regroup. So there's legitimate need and reason for this regrouping. And honestly, I actually think it's a beautiful thing. I think it's a great way to save money, but it's also an opportunity to reconnect and get through this pandemic together. But the only way that it's actually going to work is if there's healthy boundaries between you and your parents.
Yes. And first and foremost, perhaps, is the question, all right, so what are we doing about rent? Are we not bothering with rent, or are you going to be chipping in a little something?
So let me be clear. My stance on rent is pretty firm. I think that adults moving home need to pay rent, but the level of the rent should probably be adjusted to the situation. So let's say your adult kids they've moved home and they are working still. You should be charging a rent rate that allows them to, pitch in and make sure that they're keeping up with that important habit of like adulthood, right? You got to pay rent. Now, if you're in one of these situations where like your kid and their spouse, like they don't have a lick of savings and they're out of work and possibly like their Canada Recovery Benefit is done now. If that's the case, then maybe there's other ways that they can chip in, and you can predefine that by saying, okay, so you're going to be cleaning the house. That's valued at $100 a week. You're going to be doing the lawn, or, I don't know, helping me with the books. If I have a home-based business, you can come up with something, but the idea is to scale it based on the situation.
Absolutely. And in setting boundaries as well, we talk about money. What about time, which can be as valuable? Perhaps setting a boundary on how long you plan on being here.
Totally, right? Like you should be as clear with your adult kids as possible. And here's the economic forecast is we don't appear to have a huge projected swing in the economy to the positive for a number of months yet to come. Like I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what next year is going to look like, but do your best to predefine with your adult kids, like how long are you going to be here? How long are you going to pay rent? And like, what's the game plan? So let's say your kids are actually at home and they are still working. Is the game plan to build up savings for a down payment or maybe crush some debt? Those are both really good things. But being clear on like how long and like what is the game plan is going to be crystal clear, and preventing resentment in particular.
Well, and also like, what are you sharing? Well, are we going to be sharing food? What are we going to be sharing? Essentials? What about, as you mentioned in the piece, what about household responsibilities?
Absolutely. Like somebody has to be clear about when the baby throws a pile of spaghetti on the wall, like mine does, who's cleaning that up? And like, if you have kids or little grandkids that are at home, are you actually going to be stepping in as the nanny? You also want to be clear, like, are you going to be streaming on my Netflix account? Are we sharing Amazon Prime memberships? Is it okay to do a HIIT workout in the living room in the middle of the day? And like all of this stuff should be defined on the upfront so that like you don't have these surprises later on. And here's a real zinger is if you have adult kids moving home and like it's your kid plus their spouse and you and your spouse are still working, that means like 4 people are going to be drawing on the internet every single day, streaming meetings and whatnot. Like, do you need to upgrade your internet package? And like, who is paying for that?
Well, yeah, and they might be, your adult kids might be using it more than you are. They might be working from home, and you might be in the situation where you don't have to work anymore. You're older and you're out of the woods, right?
Totally. Here's an interesting one as well. Like when you've got your adult kids moving home with their kids, childcare is a big deal, right? Like, not all parents are comfortable with daycare solutions right now and or school solutions.
Mhm.
And if you as like the grandparent have just all of a sudden stepped out of the workforce to step in as nanny, like how many hours a day is that going to be, for how long? And like it could actually affect your retirement planning if you're not careful. So it's great if you're already retired. It gives you something wonderful and beautiful and helpful to do. But if you're like, shaving off the last 2 years of your working career to be your adult kid's nanny, like that is going to have implications on how prepared you are with your nest egg.
This also might be an opportunity for an adult kid that is moving back home to sharpen up their financial skills, and for the parent to help with that.
That's right. So this may be the first time your kid's moving back home, maybe the fourth time. And I will say, like, straight up freeloading is very, very rare, especially right now. But if you have like a repeat offender where your kid is coming back home because it's like they're indebted again, like they can't seem to get a hold of their behaviors when it comes to spending, one of the biggest gifts that you can give them is financial skills. Like sit down with them, show them how to build a budget, help them understand like even how to get out of debt, how to make a payment on time. It's critical learning. And let's face it, a lot of parents and grandparents never did this formalized education at the kitchen table. Like maybe you didn't know how. My parents talked about it, but we didn't actually sit down and do the work. And so this is your time to like help give your kids some financial literacy. And, if you don't want to do it, book them an appointment with like a money coach or even your financial advisor. Like
Yeah.
you can even pawn them off, but give them something.
Hey, maybe it's something you could do in tandem if it's not something that you're exceptional at yet. Maybe this is something that you can both do. Now, as far as job uncertainty is concerned, economists are looking at mid next year for more security.
That's right. So we are getting job numbers every single month, and we're looking at them, and they're not super. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we are looking at just a really tough economy, probably for another 6 to 8 months. So as your kids are moving home, keep that in mind. Like they are freaked out and they do not have good job prospects. So if they're out of work, it's like possibly the worst time in history to be looking for work. And so we need to give everybody support right now. Like just give them a break. We probably will have a better economy as the vaccine rolls out, which, we're getting better news on that every single day. And it's encouraging, but nobody actually knows when new jobs are going to be created. So like, here's the deal is like, with all this uncertainty, your kids are adult kids. They're freaked out and you are probably too, right? Because you're worried about them, but like embrace this time. It might be the only time in your lives where you're going to spend this quality time together and you could really make a huge difference in your kid's life just by helping out.
And you know what? Sometimes it doesn't matter how old you get. You go home to mom and dad, and even if you're in your early 40s, and I have this relationship not only with my mom but with my in-laws. That sometimes even when you're just going to visit, you're going to recharge the battery. That is what you're looking for when you go there, when you bring your kids, if that's the case. So sometimes it doesn't matter how old you get. When you're back with your folks, you're looking for a bit of a breather. You're looking for some reassurance. I think that's just natural, and that's just the way it always will be.
And it's a beautiful thing to give, each of us the opportunity to regroup and get through this together.
Absolutely. If financial boundaries can be set, this can also be a rewarding personal experience, as Lesley-Anne Scorgie says in her latest piece in The Star. Check out MeVest.ca, personal finance expert, MeVest founder, spaghetti thrower, baby Hank's mom, Lesley-Anne Scorgie. Lesley-Anne, always a pleasure, my friend. We'll do it again
Thanks,
next
Jeff.
week. All
Thank
right.
you.
We'll set you up for tomorrow's show as we